broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good evening to all of you. So we have 9 people here so far this evening. Let's have a look at the list of names. Ping me over a hello so that I know you can hear me. We have Amanda, Anna, Caroline, Maria, Naomi, Rob. Oh, the list has changed. There are more people coming. Where did I get up to? Dale, Seema and Tina. I think I mentioned everybody there. Let's have a look and just make sure that you can hear me super duper. All right. So Naomi saying, I don't seem to have the email with the slides. Actually, just did ping you over something in the chat to say you got 2 emails from me this morning. One which didn't have the slides. The second one did. That one was sent out about 8:40 this morning. But if you can't find it right now, then don't worry, because they'll be sent over to you again tomorrow when I send out the recording to you. So hold on to your hats. All right, so I am going to share my screen with you. Let me know when you can see it by sending me a yes so that I can... Good. Super. All right, so let me just start our slideshow. It's our final webinar. How did that happen? Well, the last month has certainly gone extremely quickly. So this evening we are going to be focusing on how to improve mental well-being in children and young people. And I wanted for this evening to avoid giving you an NLP technique, like a big focus on a particular NLP technique. And here's the reason why. Sometimes when we are working with anyone, be it adults or young people, it's not necessarily appropriate, or it doesn't quite make sense in the moment to say, okay, let's sit down and do a technique together. So you'll remember, those of you that attended the very first webinar around anxiety, we looked at a technique there called anchoring. And, you know, sometimes it's not quite the right fit to say to someone, would you mind if I just reach over and touch you on the knuckles? So what I wanted to provide for you today is something which is quite cognitive focused, something that we can start using as a framework for our own behaviour around young people, and something that ultimately is going to start shifting the mentality of young people without us necessarily having to do a formal technique to bring around that kind of change. So we're going to work through a few different bits and pieces here. Let me get started, as always, by saying welcome to you all. Thank you for joining me. My name is Gemma Bailey, if this is the first webinar of ours that you have attended. I'm the Director of NLP for Kids. I run all of the NLP for Kids training, and I mentor the NLP for Kids team too. Plus, I still have my private coaching practice, so I still get to work with young people and go out into schools and deliver either workshops or coaching sessions with them, as do the rest of the NLP for Kids team. So yes, as I just mentioned, we go out to schools, we work with young people in our local communities as well, and we deliver things around different subject areas, so that might be exam stress or anxiety, communication skills, for example, and sometimes we work with young people on very specific issues and challenges that they might be having. In terms of how you can be involved in the work that we do at NLP for Kids, there's a few different things to think about, and I will summarise a little more towards the end of this evening's webinar, it being the last one and all. So for a start, if you haven't got the other webinars from this webinar series, definitely go take a look at those. And I'd also like to know from you later on today, so don't tell me yet, but as we get towards the end of the webinar, I am going to ask you, what other webinars might you like? What other subject areas would you like us to cover in these sorts of online trainings that we can provide for you? So just let that thought brew and then let me know towards the end as to what those might be. In addition, we obviously have the NLP for Kids training. We do a discovery day normally once per month in central London, so that you can come along and get a taste of what we do and see if it's the right fit. And I'll also be pointing you in the direction of our home study programme, which I know a few of you have already gone ahead and invested in off the back of this webinar training. I'll give you some more details about that later on. So from this webinar series, it's a great opportunity for some CPD, also a refresher probably for some of you as well, and an opportunity just to hear things from a different perspective, which can be incredibly helpful. After this evening's webinar, I will be uploading the recording and sending that out to you via email tomorrow, where you'll also get another link to the slides that you're seeing on screen for those of you who are looking at screens right now. And plus there'll be your certificate in there to fill in your details and print off. So if you have not already told me in a previous webinar, please could you just ping over to me in the questions box some kind of explanation of who you are. So are you a parent? Are you a professional? If so, what kind of a professional are you? So perhaps we've got some hypnotherapists here. I think we've had some sports coaches on previous webinars as well. Certainly some teachers have come along. So let me just have a look and see who we've got here this evening. Is there anyone? Maybe you've all been to previous webinars and you therefore don't need to tell me today. Let's see. Parent. Okay, so Naomi is a mummy. And anybody else? No, I think everyone else might have told me on previous weeks, which is useful for me to know because it tells me that actually you've come along to the previous webinars as well. So the subject areas must have all been of good interest to you. So that's helpful. Thank you. All right, so normally at this stage, I kind of launch into the why are we here today and where do these issues come from? I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction today. Those of you who have ever attended an NLP for Kids Discovery Day will have seen me use this model before. But it's for me, this is a really helpful model for allowing us to start getting our head around the severity of mental health issues in children and young people. So what we have here on the screen is a small chart where we've got action, inaction, true and not true. Here is the question that is going to allow us to populate the information that goes into this. Or maybe it's more of a proposition than a question. I would like to propose that mental health issues in young people are on the increase. Now, generally speaking, I think we can all probably agree that that's sounding relatively true to us. In fact, you tell me, do you think that's true or not true? Mental health issues in young people are on the increase. So I've got a true coming in, another true coming in from Rob. Let's see, true. Is there anyone that wants to say false, just out of interest? I can't imagine that there is because I don't think you'd be here otherwise. No, it looks like everyone's saying true. Either that or the awareness. Now that's a good point, Anna. It could be an awareness thing, but I'm going to pull up some stats in a minute that maybe starts to challenge that a little bit. All right, so let's say then mental health issues in young people are on the increase. That statement is true, and in this top left-hand box, we're going to say, okay, it is true, but we're going to take some action against it. So we've got our awareness. Let's do something about it. What we're going to look at here is what are the consequences of it being both a true statement and, as a whole, as a society, us taking some form of action to combat those mental health issues. Now, you might have some additional ideas that you want to chip in here. So what if mental health issues are on the increase, but as a society, we take some action against that? Let me give you a starter for 10 as to what my kind of ripple effects are when I think about that. So, yes, it's true. However, we take action. Therefore, we're able to develop mindful young people. So although, yes, we've acknowledged there is a problem, by taking some action, we start to develop mindfulness in young people. Perhaps on a bigger scale, we might start to see some shifts within how those young people interact in society. So we might see things like less crime, less unemployment, because these young people are more mindful, so they're able to put those minds to better use. We might see that over time there is a shift in family dynamics, and that family dynamics actually become better within our communities and within our society. I would certainly expect that we would see better attainment levels in those young people, because healthy minds are able to focus better. They're able to learn more easily and more readily, and so that means that in terms of their academic skills and their education, they're able to be much more engaged. Perhaps as a whole, we might start to see the ripple effect spreading even wider, and that we begin to establish a healthier nation. So there would perhaps be less drug and alcohol misuse because we've got healthy, clean minds in these young people where they don't need that kind of escapism happening. And yes, this is going to cost us some money as a society. If we're going to be taking action against mental health issues in young people, then we're going to have to spend some money on it, unfortunately. But because of the effects that would bring, perhaps we could perceive that as a positive use of how we're spending money, because we're actually investing rather than using money to tackle the effects of the problem. We're actually putting our investment into the solution instead. So, have you chipped in anything else? No other suggestions from you guys. Well, let's have a look at a different quadrant on this chart then. So, let's instead move over to this area here and say, yes, mental health issues in young people are on the increase. However, as a society, we do not take any action against it. What would be the effects of that? So in this quadrant, perhaps we would see unsettled young people because the issues are increasing, but we're not doing anything about it. We might potentially see something like an increase in crime and higher levels of unemployment, where those minds are perhaps being distracted by other things than the things that we would ideally like those young people to be focused on. We could see more broken homes, so there may be disruption amongst family dynamics where perhaps those families are not able to respect each other, communicate in useful and meaningful ways, and so we might see more breakdown happening there. We may also see things like low academic achievement in those young people, because if their minds are filled with unwanted, unhelpful thoughts, then it makes it very difficult for them to be able to concentrate and flourish and achieve academically. We may see higher drug and alcohol use simply because they're using that as a form of escapism from the mental health issues from which they're suffering. And yes, we're going to have to invest money over here as well. And I would anticipate that the repair bills for all of what we've just said is going to be much more costly than using our spending positively to help prevent or take action against mental health and well-being issues in young people. Are you all with me so far in terms of where we're going? Okay, all right, so I've got some suggestions now. So I think Caroline's referring to our action side. We would see positive, successful young people through resilience. Yes, resilience is a word that's coming up today. And then on the inaction side, more self-harm, more self-medicating, yes, more institutionalization. That's a big word. Rise in suicide, self-harm. Yes, self-harm is a huge area. All right, so let's flip it. Let's say Gemma's got her facts wrong. Actually, there isn't an increase in mental health issues in young people. Maybe we are just a bit more aware of it, but actually, in terms of, looking at the statistics, things are no worse than they ever used to be. It's not true. Gemma got it wrong. And then we go and take some form of action. So we go putting in place all of these different programs or coaching or support or, just general education and advice around mental health issues. And actually, we didn't need to, because the issues were never on the increase anyway. What are going to be the consequences of us investing in that and providing, the support and coaching and programs and so on, when perhaps it wasn't true, mental health issues were never on the increase anyway? Well, perhaps we would still end up developing mindful young people. Like, that would still happen if we're giving them that education, even though perhaps the problem wasn't as big as we anticipated. We know there's at least some level of problem that exists right now. And would it do any harm to actually enforce some good, positive education around mental well-being? Perhaps we would still end up developing mindful young people. And maybe we would also still see that there is some kind of positive effect on society. So we might still see that there is less crime and less unemployment. We could also end up having an impact upon family dynamics. So things could still get better over there. And that would maybe have some ripple effect on children's